Yo, what's up? Welcome inside the opening line. Corey and Benny coming at you on a Thursday NBA draft. A little bit later on today, we're going to get ready and try to spoil as much time as we can, breaking this down for you. Prop bets, whatever the case may be. Scouting reports, get you ready for the next generation of NBA stars. What's going on, Benny? How was the evening last night?
Here's how the evening is, Corey. You know I'm not a coffee guy, right?
Wow.
This is my second one today already because I have been up all damn night doing this NBA stuff. And all right, this is cool that this year we actually get to bet on it for the draft. But this is actually something, as an NBA fan and as a basketball fan, this is something I actually do every year anyway. Because I just like knowing about all the players coming in and the teams and all that stuff. We used to go all the time. I don't know, the draft this year is actually in Brooklyn. It used to be at the Garden downstairs all the time. So for me, that's like a 5-minute bus ride. So we used to go over there when we were in high school. Well, I was at I've probably been to the draft 10, 15 times in my life. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. The homies was in town, obviously. I didn't really get a chance to chill too much because the kids were with me. But the homies are in town, obviously. Everybody's suited and booted, getting ready to get, the number 2 pick of the draft tonight. So that's going to be a lot of fun. You know what I'm saying? So there you go right there. Hold on 1 second. Let me reply to this, Benny. How'd your evening go last night? I think you had a pretty good night from what I can remember from yesterday.
I won on the Angels game, so that was good. I actually got lucky because I wasn't sure if that Chicago game was going to play or not, so I didn't bet on Giolito, which was a good thing because Wilson Contreras took him deep twice in that game.
Yo, you know what's crazy? You mentioned that, Benny. Everybody was on Giolito yesterday, and I was like, man, when I saw everybody on Giolito, I was like, oh no, this is a good time to hop off.
Well, like I said, the guy's been pitching like a stud this year. He was legitimately horrendous last season. He was horrible. So far this year, though, he's been Cy Young quality Giolito. So that's why everybody was on him. And then, like I said, on the other side, Lester's a pitcher that's been on the decline for a couple years right now. So it made sense. Like I said, I got saved by the weather on that one last night. Now, we didn't hit on the first goal for Lionel Messi. But like I was telling you, I in-game bet him to score the second goal after he didn't score the first goal. And he did wind up with the second goal of that game at plus 250. So that made up for not getting him for the first goal and put a little extra money in my pocket too. So that was nice.
Nice. That's always a good thing to get right there when you get a couple extra dollars in the boys' pockets. All right. So here we go. Obviously, big thing tonight in the NBA draft right here in Brooklyn. Looks like we got the first 3 picks of the draft already locked in already. Right quick, as far as latest rumors and stuff, a lot of stuff kind of calmed down yesterday. Didn't really hear too much. We did talk about Chris Paul. The Rockets did try to trade Chris Paul to the Knicks. And the Knicks smartly were like, we're not buying. You know what? I tell you what, when Phil Jackson left and Fizdale came in, I was like, this thing might start to turn around right now. And you're seeing better decision-making from the brass in Madison Square Garden.
Well, this is exactly what we talked about yesterday. This is the smart thing to do. You don't want to be saddled with a 3-year, $40 million a year contract from a guy who's on the decline in his career. And I love Chris Paul. Chris Paul's been a great player for a long time, but he's on the decline. You can't argue against that. You don't want to be paying top dollar for a guy who's on the decline after it took you so long. The Knicks for so long had no money to spend, made a whole bunch of stupid moves, were locked into a whole bunch of dumb stuff. You finally got yourself to the point where the books are clean and your roster's clean and you can go make some moves. You don't want to waste that by going and taking a guy who 5 years ago, this would have been a good move for them to make. But now, this was not a good move to make. So kudos to the Knicks for not doing something stupid.
All right, so now please don't do nothing stupid tonight, New York Knicks. But let's get ready to get started. First pick of the draft goes to the New Orleans Pelicans. Benny, and I'll tell you one thing. You talk about the great YouTube sensations. You talk about the Reggie Bushes, the Julio Jones, the Derrick Roses. I don't think we've never seen anything like what we saw from the young man, Zion Williamson.
Mm-hmm.
Then he goes to Duke, does not disappoint. Big spot right here, obviously. Okay, you can say, well, it's going to be interesting to see how the game translates to the NBA, but no general manager, no owner in their right mind cannot have the number 1 pick of the draft and be like, I'm going to draft somebody else. It's Zion.
Yeah, zero suspense to the first pick. You don't even have to be an NBA fan to know who's going number 1 overall tonight. And there's no arguments I can make from it. He's the best prospect in this draft. He's a physical specimen. He's got a lot of skills. Here's the thing I want to say, though. When you compare him to other first-round draft picks, he's not LeBron James. I don't care what anybody says. Maybe physically he's LeBron James. Skills-wise, he's not LeBron James. Now, again, that's not a knock on him, though. Like, it's not a knock on a guy to say he's not going to be the greatest player of the last 50 years. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt.
That's not, that's not like I'm saying Zion Williamson sucks. He will get drafted. He will be an all-star at some point during his career. He will have a very productive NBA career as long as he stays healthy.
Will he be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done?
Now, see, I mean, again, I don't care who it is drafted. I don't want to put that much pressure on anybody. But listen, physically, he has the tools to do it.
Okay.
Is he as good a draft prospect as LeBron James was? No. But that doesn't mean that he's not a tremendous prospect. And any draft that you throw this guy in the last 20 years, he's a top 3 pick.
Yeah.
He's that good. Just everyone keeps comparing him to LeBron, and that's an unfair comparison to give to a kid. LeBron was the best 18-year-old basketball player we have seen in our lifetimes.
No doubt.
And there's no question about it. There isn't even anybody else close. But Zion Williamson is still one of the best draft prospects that's come out in the last 15, 20 years. Deserving number 1 overall. You'd be an absolute moron not to take.
Put it like this, Benny. He's the most explosive player to enter the NBA since LeBron James.
Again, athletically, him and LeBron, I understand the comparison. Basketball skills-wise, and again, no knock on Zion's basketball skills, LeBron is in a league of his own now. Was in a league of his own at 18, 19 years old.
Memphis Grizzlies had the second pick. You see the other day, they trade Mike Conley. Very quick, before we get into the Grizzlies, Conley going to Utah. Seen a lot of people say that Utah is now a serious contender in the West. Would you agree? They might be the best defensive team in the league.
Well, that's the thing. It really helps the defense because you now have 2 very good defensive guards in that backcourt with you. I still don't think the rest of their team is up to par. I mean, you got Rudy Gobert in the middle. That's a nice piece right there. But, Joe Ingles is basically a spot-up shooter. He's an okay piece to have on a team. Nothing bad there. They traded Jay Crowder. Now, last year when they went small, Jay Crowder was that guy that allowed them to go small. They do have Derek Favors still. I think he's still under contract. I'd have to double-check on that.
Yeah.
But, so you have that other big, but nobody's playing 2 bigs anymore in the NBA. That's not the way it is. So I think they still have a hole there that they need to fill with a big forward who can, guard people in the pick and roll and go out there. Because if you have Rudy Gobert as your center and a forward who can do that like Jay Crowder, that made them a pretty tough defense. When you have Derek Favors in there, teams are going to be pick and rolling Derek Favors to death up at the top of the key. And that's how teams are going to try to attack them all season. So what they need is a guy who can play that stretch 4 and be kind of a 3-and-D guy with the guards that they have there and penetrating and making things happen. So I still think this team needs some more pieces, but I do like the move for Conley. I don't think they gave up a lot either.
No doubt. They didn't. So, no, I thought it was a good move. And the Memphis Grizzlies, obviously, this more or less cements that tonight they will be selecting John Morant with the second pick, the explosive guard out of Murray State. 2 years ago this time, John Morant was known as the kid that used to throw Zion the alley-oops. Now he's about to get picked second behind Zion. 2 years ago this time, his only offer was Murray State. Probably a little later on that summer, Alabama and the University of South Carolina came in as his only 2 top Power 5 schools. Mm-hmm. 2 years later, he's the second best basketball player that's not in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Ja would be the number 2 pick overall. There is still a chance that New Orleans tries to trade up like we talked about yesterday. Yeah. Seems that that's kind of dying down, the rumor and all that. If Memphis holds on to the pick, I do think they go with Ja Morant. Now, listen, I love Ja Morant. He's got a lot of skills that'll translate to the NBA. He's a super athletic kid. He rebounds well. He's a hard-nosed player. He's got a good handle. He knows how to score. For his position in the NBA, the one knock on him or the weakness that people are talking about, he probably needs to improve his range on his jump shot and be a little more consistent with it. But no problem with Ja Morant going second overall. Again, if you look at the DraftKings Sportsbook, he's the guy who's like minus 2,000 to be this pick. So there's a good chance that's going to happen. Like I said, there is still a chance New Orleans can pull off some kind of trade if they want to keep Barrett and Zion Williamson together. But I don't really think it's going to happen. So most likely it's going to be Ja Morant number 2.
No, with the third pick, the New York Knicks on the clock with the third pick, New York Knicks. Looks like R.J. Barrett is going to be the pick here. I think last year, this time, and you were handicapping this class, you would say R.J. Barrett was the best player in this class.
Well, I mean, other than Zion, I would say. I still think Zion was a higher rated prospect. But, yeah, I mean, R.J. Barrett, listen, he tested out off the charts on his athleticism. There are certain things that you shouldn't be able to do when you're a man that size. And we saw that when he played this year. You know, some of the drives that he was able to make to the basket, the way he can control his body, the way he can kind of change direction on a dime. You know, those are things that are going to help him get open and get shots up and off at the NBA level. He's got NBA size. He's 6'8", 6'9". You know, pretty good shooter. I think he could probably improve on that. But, you know, again, 19-year-old kid with tons of talent, deserves to be a top 3 pick. Another guy who's like minus 2,000 to be the number 3 pick overall. So New York Knicks probably wind up with him.
Let me ask you this. Some of the people that knocks against him is this is his peak, that he's at his ceiling right now, R.J. Barrett. The player you have right now is the player you're going to have. Almost like, okay, he's not going to get much better than what he is right now.
Okay, I mean, again, what you're really saying when you're saying that, though, is the kid doesn't have any flaws in his game that he can improve. You know what I mean? So, like, is that really a bad thing? You know, like if somebody says to, you know, Halle Berry at 30 years old, like, you know, you're at your peak. Does that mean that we still don't want to see 35-year-old Halle Berry and 40-year-old Halle Berry? Like, she's still gorgeous. You know what I mean? So, hey, you know what? If you reach your peak at 20 years old and you're the best at what you can do and there's nothing you can improve on, personally, I don't believe that at all. You know, you can always work on things. You can always get better at things. Really what they're saying, though, is the guy has a completely polished game that has no holes in it. I mean, if that's the biggest knock you have on somebody, I'll gladly take that guy on my team.
Especially at 19 years old, no doubt about it. All right, now's where it starts to get interesting. 4th pick of the draft, New Orleans did belong to the Lakers. Now it belongs to the New Orleans Pelicans. What are we hearing about this one right here, Benny? Who you like?
All right, so the bet that I like the most tonight is that Darius Garland from Purdue is going to be this pick at minus 121.
Wow.
The thing I will say to you, though, is I don't know who takes him because I don't know if it's going to be New Orleans that ends up with this guy ultimately because everybody's trying to trade up to get this kid. I got to be perfectly honest. I haven't seen him play all that much. He played 4 games at Purdue, and then he tore his ACL or something like that and missed the rest of the season.
You sure it was Purdue?
Yeah, he was from – oh, no, not Purdue. Vanderbilt. Sorry about that. So played 4 – I was thinking of Carson Edwards, the other guard we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
So Garland only played 4 games this year, tore his ACL, and then missed the rest of the season. The comps that people are talking about with this kid is like Steph Curry, Trae Young. You know, like he's that kind of knockdown shooter from deep with range all day that, you know, can run a team and be a point guard. Now, again, he played 4 games in the NCAA, so I don't have a lot to go on. There isn't a lot of game film on him. There's some highlights and stuff you can find online. But when you only play 4 games before you get hurt, you don't really know. He was a big-time prospect coming out. You know, he's a kid that a lot of people are excited about and think he has some upside. But what I'm hearing right now is that most people consider him the number 1 point guard in the draft outside of John Morant. So he's the guy that everybody's kind of coveting. And there aren't a lot of other guys that are true point guards behind him. You know, there's the Kobe White. There's, Carson Edwards, like I said. There's a kid from USC, Porter. But Garland is the one that everybody's really, really interested in. So, you know, again, I don't know if the pick goes to New Orleans because New Orleans taking a point guard here doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
No.
You know, they just traded for Lonzo. You're assuming they're going to hand him the ball and let him be the point guard for them. So I don't see Garland going to New Orleans, but apparently this is a pick that a lot of teams are trying to trade up to get. So we'll see what winds up happening, but Garland is the guy that everybody's talking about. Now, if
a lot of talk about the Wizards coming up to get this pick right here, but the Wizards have said that Bradley Beal isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, I would not trade Bradley Beal to get the 4th pick to get Darius Garland. That's not going to happen. If the pick does stay with New Orleans, though, if New Orleans is going to keep it, now again, the Lakers are going to be drafting for New Orleans because that deal can't officially go down until like July 1st. So you're going to hear a lot of that stuff like drafting for this team or something tonight. Really what it means is they have a deal, but because of league rules, the deal can't happen until I think it's July 1st when the deals can go down or something like that.
July 1st or June 30th.
Yeah.
Is it July 1st a weekend this year?
Well, let's see. Today's what? The 20th, so 21st, 28th, 29th, 30th. No, it'll be a Monday. July 1st will be a Monday. The 30th would be the Sunday. So it'll probably be July 1st when all these deals wind up working down. Has something to do with like the salary cap and free agency. It's all BS. But for the most part, you're going to hear. Yeah, you're going to hear tonight that this guy was traded for this guy or they're drafting rights for this guy. If New Orleans keeps this pick, I got to think they go with like either a Jared Culver or a DeAndre Hunter. Those are probably the two guys who would make more sense for them to go get. Hunter is more of like a 3-4 kind of 3-and-D guy. He's got a decent shot from the outside, very athletic, very good defensive player. He's somebody that would fit in there and is probably going to go in these 4, 5, 6 range right there. Culver is more of like a wing scorer, probably more like a shooting guard, small forward type. It's about 6'6", again, not like a knockdown shooter, but he can shoot. He can score going to the basket. He's a good defender. Culver's another one of those guys that like he's well above average at everything, but he's not like super elite at anything. You know what I mean?
Culver and Hunter, two players that shined in the NCAA tournament this year. You know what I'm saying? So there you go right there. They took advantage of that opportunity, parlayed it into a shot at being a top 5 draft pick. Now, here's a FanDuel Sportsbook. If you think DeAndre Hunter is going to go in the top 5, you can get that at plus 114.
See, I do think put it this way, he's one of those guys that's going to go either 4, 5, or 6. All three of these guys, Garland, Culver, and DeAndre Hunter, to me, is the 3-man group that's right behind, the 2 Duke guys and John Morant.
Okay. Culver for a top 5 pick is minus 235. But the sports books agree with you on that one. Like you said, to Culver, that wing scorer right there. And then Hunter, like I said, I think, would you make the Hunter bet at plus 114?
Yeah, I would. But here's the other thing I'll say to you, though. If you think Hunter is going to go 4 or 5 overall, I'm pretty sure on DraftKings Playbook, you can get – let me double-check on this right now. But I'm pretty sure he's like over 3-1 to be the 4th or 5th pick. Let's see here. So to be the 4th pick, Hunter is plus 350. To be the 5th pick, Hunter is plus 125. Okay. So either way, I think you're better off taking that over at let's see what his draft position is.
Taking it over at DK.
Yeah, I'm just looking to see what they have. They have draft by position, like this guy will be he will get drafted over or under 5.5, 4.5. I'm trying to see if they have – they don't even have him on the list here. That's weird. Oh, here he is, Hunter. So Hunter under 5.5 is plus 110 on DraftKings. So what was he on FanDuel?
Plus 114.
So you're getting a little bit better if you want to take under 5.5. He's most likely projected by a lot of people to be the 5th pick overall here today.
All right. Coming up next, after we get past that, we get to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Once the powerhouse in the Eastern Conference, now the Cleveland Cavaliers. There's a lot they need, Benny.
See, they're one of the hardest ones to predict because, honestly, they need everything.
Yep.
They need – and, again, they're even talking – there's been trade rumors flying around about Kevin Love, too. So you never know what might happen there either.
Interested in Kevin Love.
Who is?
Oklahoma City.
So Oklahoma City is also here's another draft thing that might happen today that might shock some people trade-wise. Oklahoma City is apparently shopping Steven Adams too.
Yes, exactly. You're correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they can trade Steven Adams, they may do so to bring in a Kevin Love. They may do so to just get some draft picks. I think they're just trying to get Steven Adams' salary off of their books. Steven Adams is a good enough defensive player and a solid enough rebounder that somebody may be interested in taking him even. And I don't think he's that old either. I mean, he's still under 30. So
yeah, not only that, Steven Adams, one thing that Steven Adams has played in big games. And you know what I'm saying? He's played well in big games. Players like Steven, as you just saw with Marc Gasol, players like that come in very clutch when you're trying to make that run. Like you said, though, Benny, a lot going on with this 5th pick right here. Like we talked about Hunter, Culver, guys like that. The Cleveland Cavaliers kind of use everything. The Phoenix Suns coming in at 6. They had the 1st pick last year, if I'm not mistaken. Another team that could use some of everything. But it's a good, fun, young team who has some nice wins coming down the stretch of this season, Benny. I'm not saying that this is a playoff team in the West next year, but this ain't a 15-win team next year either.
No, and this is a team that if Darius Garland doesn't go 4th or 5th, this is where Darius Garland's going to go because they really want to push Booker off the ball from playing point, which is what they should do. Booker is more of a shooting guard. That's really his role. You want Booker being the guy, knocking down shots that you're trying to create offense for. when you ask him to also play the point guard, you're just asking him to do so much that the guy's going to wind up breaking down, which is kind of what we've seen the last couple of years. You want to take that responsibility off his hands. So if Garland's around, that's a guy that goes there. Again, this is one of those picks, 4, 5, 6. Garland, Culver, Hunter are going to be these 3 picks. I just can't tell you what order it's going to be because it depends if someone trades up or not.
All right, next up is the Chicago Bulls with the 7th pick. Benny, once again, we got some interesting stuff going on right here. The Bulls, a lot of work to be done in Chicago as well.
Yeah, so from what I'm hearing, the Bulls are actually really interested in North Carolina point guard Kobe White. So, yeah, Kobe White could be a guy that goes there. I mean, listen, he's played in that up-tempo kind of offense, so you got to figure that they're going to want to push the ball if they're going to go get him. It makes sense when they have a guy like Zach LaVine as well. You want those guys kind of getting up and down and running the floor. Again, this is the pick that a lot of people are talking about them taking. So I wouldn't be shocked to see them take Kobe White here. I don't really love Kobe White, I got to be honest. And I'm a Carolina fan. Now, I like him. I think he's good. But, we talked about it before. To me, he's a middle to the bottom of the league point guard, starting point guard, if that's what you're going to use him as, or a very good second-team kind of point guard, which, again, no knock on him at all. He's a very good player, but not the kind of guy I want with the number 7 overall pick.
Is he a starter in the NBA 4 or 5 years from now?
I mean, yes, I think he is. But again, I think his ceiling is as a middle of the road starter. Like, I don't think he's ever going to be a top 10 point guard. I think he's going to be just he's going to be a solid guy that's on a team that finishes fighting for the 6, 7, 8 seed in the playoff or worse.
He's a body on a roster. You know what I'm saying?
He's more than a body on a roster, but he's not a difference maker. That's my whole thing. He's not going to be the guy that you're not going to say we won the championship and look back and say, man, so glad we took Kobe White with that number 7 pick. That's the reason.
If you think that White is going to be drafted from the 7th spot on down, you can get that at even money on FanDuel.
Basically, it comes down to how you feel about Darius Garland because you know that the Phoenix Suns are looking for a point guard. The 2 options that a lot of people have them looking at are Kobe White and Darius Garland. Now, I personally feel that after reading all the scouts and the people who I respect and their opinions on him, that most teams have Garland ranked higher than White right now, which means that White would drop to at least 7, if not further down.
Oh, okay. And then coming in with the 8th pick is the Atlanta Hawks. Second half of the season, if I'm not mistaken, Benny, the Atlanta Hawks were the highest scoring team in the NBA after the All-Star break. Trae Young pick worked out. Herder is still got some developing. They still got a 50-year-old Vince Carter on that team. They got a good young head coach. I think they're starting to see the pieces of starting to put it together in Atlanta. They got 8. They got picks 8 and 10. Where do you see the Hawks going?
So the rumor is the Hawks are trying to move up. The Hawks really want R.J. Barrett, have a raging boner for R.J. Barrett right now.
Yes.
I think what's going to wind up happening, though, I don't know if they're going to be able to get up and get him. Because really, I can't imagine – I mean, what would the Knicks ask for? Do you want 8 and 10?
They already offered the Knicks 8 and 10. The Knicks turned it down.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I'd rather keep the 3 than have the 8 and 10 because if you look at the NBA draft over the last 15 or 20 years, I think was the study that I was looking at. Top 5 picks hit at about a 75 to 80% rate.
Last year's top 5 picks, really all rookie team.
Yeah, and that's the thing is the top 5 picks hit at such a high rate. You would think 4 of the 5 guys drafted in the top 5 tonight are historically likely to go on and have very good to great NBA careers. And you can go back and look at all these drafts. Now, of course, there's a miss here. There's a miss there. There's a Michael Olowokandi. There's Darko Milicic. There's these guys sprinkled in. But like I said, 75 to 80%. So the other 4 out of 5 guys in that top 5, the LeBron James, the Chris Boshes, the Dwayne Wades, the Carmelo Anthonys, they're going to go on and have really good careers. When you go from 6 to 10, you have maybe 1 or 2 of those guys who end up being stars, and then 4 or 5 of those guys end up being solid NBA players. So you're going to have your Damian Lillard, who was the 7th pick, or your Donovan Mitchell, who is the 7th pick among these 6 to 10 guys. But you're also probably likely to have a bunch of guys who the names, but they're second-team players for much of their career who, never really have a big role on any team that makes a difference. Still, NBA players, guys getting paid to play NBA basketball. Once you get past the 10th pick, though, it's really a crapshoot. Like the guys after the 10th pick, from 10 to 30, you may have one or two of those guys who are significant. You know, you have your Kyle Kuzma's back there. You have your, I don't know, your other guys who wound up in that range. A lot of times the guys who hit in that range are guys like Kobe Bryant, who was an 18-year-old kid somebody took a chance on, or Giannis, who was a guy from overseas that somebody took a chance on. You don't see many of the college guys that go from 11 to 30 turning out to be stars. Now, again, I'm not saying all of them fail, but just statistically, when you look at the numbers, a lot of those guys wind up failing that go from that point on. So I don't think it's crazy what the Knicks did by turning down the 8th and the 10th pick for the number 3, because the number 3 is a very likely star, whereas the two guys you're taking at 8 and 10, they basically have a lower success rate than the number 3 does, even if you add the success rate of both of those guys together.
No doubt. So let me ask you this. You got those 2 picks right there to round out the top 10, but you got the Washington Wizards sitting at 9. Where should the Wizards go?
So, I mean, it's going to depend who falls down at this point. There's a couple big guys. You had the 2 big guys from Gonzaga. They're 2 guys that are being talked about in this range right here. You had the big kid from Texas, Hayes. He's somebody being talked about here. There's a kid from France who's really the only foreign kid that is like a – there are 3 foreign kids that a lot of people are talking about as potential first-round picks. This is the one that's supposedly the best of the 3.
They cool?
Yeah, I mean, to me, he's kind of like a Serge Ibaka, I guess.
Okay.
He's like 6'9", he's 230. He's very athletic. He can hit the outside shot, but he's not like a knockdown outside kind of shooter. He's just a huge physical specimen, very athletic, decent basketball skills for a big guy and for a guy his size. But you're kind of looking at him more as like I said, like a Serge Ibaka, like a swing power forward or a small center on a second unit or a smaller unit, the way the NBA is kind of moving right now. That's kind of who he is. But really, once you get past Cam Reddish at 8, you're really looking at a run of like 4 or 5 big guys that a lot of people are looking at here. Who are the 2 kids from Gonzaga? The kid Hachimura is one, Rui Hachimura.
Brandon Clark.
And then Brandon Clark is the other one right there. So, those are the guys that should be going in that like 9 to 12 range, especially if somebody's looking for a big guy, because they're the best big guys in the draft, but they're all really like a step below the wing players that we've talked about from 1 through 8.
Before we get into some of your best bets, I just want to get your opinion on a couple of bigger names or the more popular names, the guys that we haven't mentioned. Like, for example, the kid Darius Bazley, who didn't go to college. He sat out and trained, prepared himself. He looks like he's going to be a back of the first round guy, right, Benny?
Yeah, he's probably going to be the back of the first round. The Nets apparently are very, very interested in this kid. So to build on the story that Corey's talking about here, this was a kid who graduated high school last year. Mm-hmm. And instead of going to college, he decided he was going to take, I think they called it an internship at New Balance. So basically what he did is he just –
Was he living in Toronto?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
I feel like he may have been in Toronto. I don't know. Whatever. He's a clutch management guy. He's a Rich Paul kid. Go ahead, Benny.
All right, so basically what he did is the same route that Knicks fans will remember Mitchell Robinson took last year. This is exactly the same thing that Robinson did. Instead of going to college, he basically just sat there and worked out for, the rest of the year and just got himself ready for the draft right here. Again, the kid's 6'9". He's 210 pounds. Definitely has an NBA body. Is considered to be like a swing guy, like a 3-and-D guy, like a small forward, power forward type. Again, here's the problem that I have. I really have no idea of how his skills are going to translate, right? Because I haven't even seen him. It's tough to even predict what a guy's going to do, how his skills translate from college to the pros. It's even tougher when the only film or the only things you see on this kid are him working out with some 5'5" coach in a gym somewhere by himself.
Yeah.
And then him playing against high school kids who, right now are probably drinking beer and playing beer pong, not, competing in basketball at a high level. So, the kid's got skills. He's athletic as hell. He's good. But it's tough for me to slot this kid in. He could be good enough to go anywhere from the 10th pick in this draft to drafted at the back of the second round, because it all depends on, what kind of faith you have in the skills and him working out. I will say this. Last year, Mitchell Robinson dropped all the way to the second round because he did this, and people didn't really know about him. Knicks fans will tell you Mitchell Robinson's a pretty good player, so that worked out. So I don't know if that makes it easier for this kid or not.
The New Orleans Pelicans were absolutely in love with Mitchell Robinson. New York Knicks told him no way, and Anthony Davis was the player that it wasn't going to be a straight up deal. But the Knicks were not parting ways with Kevin Knox and Mitchell Robinson, even when Anthony Davis was the player on the other side. So let you know, a lot of people are in on Mitchell Robinson. The young man, this could end up working. We're going to start seeing more and more of this anyway, Benny. Benny, if you guys remember, was us, Benny, you remember Manute Bol, his son comes out. You talk about skills on skills on skills for somebody who's 7 feet tall. Bol is his name for Oregon. But Benny, when you 19 years old and you got feet problems and you 7 feet tall, they ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, if you just went straight up based on talent, Bol's a top 5 pick in this draft.
Yeah.
I mean, the kid, not only is he 7'2", and you can't teach height was what my coaches used to always say to me growing up. You know, not only is he 7'2", but he can actually play. Like, he's got post moves. He can hit
Kevin Durant. Like, you know.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's not a bad comp for him at all. Like, he is legitimately somebody, not right now at 19 years old, but I mean, he's somebody who could project out to be that kind of player. But like you said, the problem with him is injuries. I mean, that's what hurt him this year. You know, he wasn't even able to finish the whole season at Oregon this year. This is a kid that is probably good. He's definitely going in the first round. He's probably going to be somewhere between like 15 and 25.
He's going to end up on a good team.
He could end up being the best player in this draft at the end of it all said and done, including Zion Williamson, including John Morant. He could literally be the best player in this draft. The problem is he could also be out of the league in a year after missing half of this season with another injury and, you know, never fulfilling the potential that he has.
Another name that people will remember from the NCAA tournament, the big man from UCF, Taco Fall. Me personally, I don't know if this is an NBA player.
So Taco Fall to be drafted at all is minus 200. Listen, here's the deal. If he gets drafted, he's going to be a guy that's drafted.
Project.
Yeah, set like late second round, somewhere around there. He's probably going to end up in the D League. You know, again, the guy's 7'4". You know, you can't teach height. So there's going to be somebody who will take a chance on him and hope that his skills develop a little bit more. But you got to understand, like, he's a poor man's Boban. Like, that's basically what you're looking at here is a poor man's Boban. Is he's going to rebound because he's so tall. He's going to take up space in the middle. He's going to be able to block shots. But if you pick and roll with him, he's not going to be able to guard anybody. He's not going to be able to help anybody. And when he's on an NBA court, whoever he's guarding, teams are just going to pick and roll that guy to death, and the guards are just going to have a freaking field day. Yeah, and that's basically what it is.
No doubt. Carson Edwards, NCAA tournament fame with Purdue. What do you think about him?
I love this kid, man. Again, he helped us and screwed us during the NCAA tournament, if you remember, with some of those big shots and some of those boneheaded plays at the end of games. But, I mean, this kid is a shooter. He's a very good ball handler. He's a high-energy guy. He's a good leader. He's a good passer. He's a good competitor. Here's the knock on him, though. He weighed out and, you know, sized out at only 6 feet tall and 199 pounds. Mm-hmm. He's going to get beat up by some of the bigger guys in the league. What I think of him as is a very good second-tier point guard. He's going to be your backup point guard that runs the second unit. Who's the guy from Indiana that I'm thinking of right now? Not Avery Bradley. What the hell's his name? Corey Joseph. Corey Joseph is a really good example. He's going to be like a Corey Joseph type. Again, I like him. He's awesome, but you got to understand that his ceiling is pretty much your backup point guard and, you know, playing minutes when your starting point guard is injured or hurt. But I don't think you want to go in with Carson Edwards as your starting point guard for trying to win a championship.
Right quick. A lot of people thought earlier this year that 1, 2, 3 picks in the draft would be Zion Williamson, R.J. Barrett, and Cam Reddish. Cam Reddish is a guy that's on the outside of that. Hearing him somewhere in the inside, maybe inside Atlanta seems to be a landing spot for Cam Reddish. A lot of dissecting and talking about his game, Benny. The kid is probably a stud, but he just wasn't as studly as the other two.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically Atlanta's probably going to lose out on trading up to get R.J. Barrett, and they're probably going to settle for Cam Reddish. Reddish is not as good as Barrett, as we saw this year. I mean, basically, here's the problem. You had 3 of the best players in college basketball on the same team. Mm-hmm. So when you have 3 studs like that on the same team, somebody's going to be the alpha, somebody's going to be the lieutenant, the Robin to his Batman, and then somebody else gets lost in the mix. Cam Reddish was the guy who got lost in the mix here. He could wind up being the third or fourth best player in this draft, and people are going to be like, man, why did anybody take all these other guys before him? But from what we've seen of him so far, I can't tell you that that's the way it's going to work out, or that's the way it's going to wind up happening.
Right quick, a couple other names that people have probably heard of. Talk about the Cam Reddish thing. What's the kid? My man, Romeo Langford from Indiana, and it's another Tar Heel in this draft too, Cameron Johnson.
Yeah, so I would much rather have Cam Johnson than Romeo Langford. So here's basically the deal. A lot of these guys that we're going to talk about, a lot of the guys that I'll mention when I'm done here with these guys too, are all what we call 3-and-D guys, right? They can hit a shot from the outside, and they can defend. And this is what a lot of teams are looking for in the NBA, because a lot of teams already have their –
those are skills you have to have now.
Right. A lot of teams already have their ball handlers. A lot of teams already have their big guys. What they're looking for is those other pieces that can guard multiple positions and, do a whole bunch of stuff like that. So that's the way that it's going, and that's the way that everything's going to kind of be there. When you look at these guys, Cam Johnson from North Carolina, knockdown shooter, 6'8" tall. He's the kind of guy that is a poor man's 3-and-D kind of guy that you would want on your team. Romeo Langford is not as good a shooter, more of a guy who's like athletic and tries to drive. And he's only 6'6". So at 6'6", you're going to see a lot of these guys. I mean, this is the knock that a lot of people have with Jarrett Culver too. Culver is 6'6". You have who was the other guy that I was looking at here? Well, anyway, to get through what it all says, the research has kind of shown that a 6'6" guy playing the small forward 3-and-D role is not really what you're looking for. The guys that are special are the guys that are 6'7", 6'8", can knock down those shots and also play D, because those are the guys that'll be able to guard some of the small forwards in the league. Remember, everybody's getting taller, everybody's getting bigger. Back in the day, if you were a 6'3" shooting guard, you were big. Now, if you're a 6'3" shooting guard, you're small. Most shooting guards are 6'5", 6'6", meaning that most small forwards who used to be 6'4", 6'5", are now guys that are 6'8" and 6'9" that can knock down that shot. So if you're under 6'8", teams really look at it as, well, we can only play this guy at the 2. If you're a guy who's 6'8" or above, now they're looking at you as, we can play you at the 2, we can play you at the 3. You're also big enough that we can move you to the 4. So for me, a guy like Cam Johnson probably has more upside than a guy like Romeo Langford. And there's a bunch of guys in this draft that are that way too. I mean, the kid Lewis King, who was a freshman from Oregon, here's the 6'9", 3-and-D guy that people are going to be interested in. Jalen McDaniels, another guy. Jalen McDaniels is an interesting 3-and-D guy in this draft. 6'9", 195. And the comp that a lot of people have for him is Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma is a great comp, and that's another guy who dropped into that, 20 range of the draft, which is probably where Jalen McDaniels is going to wind up too.
No doubt. Right quick, Benny, local guy, Shamari Pond, St. John's.
Yeah, I mean, here's another undersized kind of point guard. Tough kid, really good handle. I would say he's not as good as a Carson Edwards, and I see Edwards as a end of the first round guy who's going to play with your second team unit. So if he gets drafted, he's probably going to wind up drafted in the second round. And again, I think his ceiling is probably as a backup point guard in the league, which isn't bad.
No, he's an NBA basketball player. Who am I, Benny?
I mean, listen, you're going to get paid a couple $100,000, and your job is going to be to go play basketball every day. I'm in. Sign me up. I'll take that job right now.
I will make it. All right, what we got, Benny? Best bets for the night.
So let's talk my prize picks real first. I got a my prize picks women's soccer bet for today, Corey.
All right.
The U.S. team plays today. It's actually the toughest match the U.S. team has had so far, going up against Sweden. They played the second unit in the last game, but you're going to see the top team out there today. So I love Alex Morgan. I mean, she's almost a lock to score a goal every time she goes out there on this team. I love Megan Rapinoe. Both of them have very low numbers that they have to reach today. So Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe are 2. And the one who holds it together for me, I can't even pronounce this girl's name, to be honest with you, but she's the forward for the Netherlands. Her first name is Vivian. Her last name, I think it's Medora. They only have her for 5.5 points is what they have on my prize picks.
Yeah, Vivian.
Medema. Yeah, so she's been taking about 5 shots on goal every game. And, I mean, shots on goal and goals being scored is really the way you score fantasy points in fantasy soccer. So I'm going with her and Alex Morgan as my 2x2. And then I may throw Megan Rapinoe in there and do a 3x3 over there on prize picks today too. So I didn't really like the baseball because they only have the early slate up right now. Yeah. Later on today when they have the late slate up, there may be something that I like there. But there's so few games in the early slate. I don't want to take that chance. I think the best way to make money is actually playing the World Cup women's soccer with Alex Morgan and how do you say her name again?
Vivian Medema.
Yeah, and Vivian Medema. That's the best 2x2 today.
All right, there you go right there. That's myprizepicks.com. Promo code ELITE, ELITE. Benny, big piece of chicken.
I'm going to give the big piece of chicken out tonight to every one of these kids who's getting a chance to live out their dream tonight, man. You worked your entire life, your entire career to get to this point. So go out there, no matter who you get drafted by, no matter when you get drafted. You know, you could wake up tomorrow and when some chick says, oh, what do you do for a living? You could be like, I'm an NBA player. That's all that matters.
No, I definitely agree with you 100% on that one. Not to forget, to the parents and the families that back and forth to practice and up earlys and late nights and stuff like that. This is the dream that you did it for, and it gets a chance to get that done tonight. So I agree with Benny. You all get that big piece of chicken. You ask any professional basketball player what is their favorite moment in the NBA, they will tell you the night I got drafted. So there you go right there. Congratulations to those young men. For my main man, Benny, I'm the fantasy executive. We are out.